recording has started.
Yes.
You say 1, 2, 3.
Oh, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I counted 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Say start.
Start.
Hello, Dr. Dilip Devasthale. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Super. I am Manish Katyan. I have something. Today I am going to talk about international higher education to Dr. Dilip Devasthale. He has been a professor and dean for 20 years in many US universities. He has also been an entrepreneur with quite a bit of success. He has been part of 2 of the top accelerators, 500 startup, and started, needless to say, he also understands the other side of academia. So today we are going to ask about international education and higher education in general. What is happening today? There are so many issues, there are so many new trends which are coming up. So idea is to get his sense of what is happening. So Dr. Dilip, I'm going to ask a few questions. I'll start with some key trends, and I would like to have your comments on that. And I'll start with the something which is like very very prominent today. What do you say about decline in enrollment at college level?
Okay, this is about enrollment in the US.
Yes. We are talking about US universities.
All right. So there has been a decline in enrollment. A lot of it has to do with the fact that there is a change in demographics in terms of what the students who are coming out of the high school system. Those numbers are lesser. Our colleges and universities have expanded tremendously to be able to incorporate more students, and so there is indeed a gap over there. But there are other reasons also. One of the big reasons is, of course, the financial aspect of it, where students are being challenged, in terms of where they can find the funding, who's going to pay for their education, because the cost of education, has risen tremendously. It is not in proportion to the rest of the financial aspects. So it has been a significant hit for students, and students have been forced to look at alternative options, and they have started questioning, should they go to a 4-year college right from day one, or should they do a community college and then transfer over to a 4-year college, or should they look at online options for some part of the time. So there are different creative ways everybody is looking at to see how they can contain their costs. So I would say those are some of the fundamental aspects of what is happening in the global space.
Sure. So moving on, what is your take on growing student debt?
Okay, it's a question which is now becoming significantly important for the next generation. How much debt can they carry, and at the same time, how much can universities provide in terms of support? There has to be a cap at some point because it's literally going through the roof. How do you contain it? There is tremendous concern on the part of parents who are being forced to take on more. There are limits in terms of how much a student can borrow. What does this mean in terms of their future and their ability to return the money? It's not about borrowing the amount. I mean, yeah, you borrow $500,000 or $250,000 for your education. I mean, medical school is very expensive, but how do you return that amount? On what basis, and what kind of jobs are going to be out there which will allow you to do it? So there's tremendous concern. I don't think there are any solutions. Everybody thinks they're coming up with certain things, but I think it'll take a little more time for us to feel comfortable with the options that we are presenting to students and others.
Sure. So you are saying problem is there. What would be the solution? We don't know yet, but at least everybody is today aware of student debt as a big problem. Moving on, Dr. Dilip, you talked about a decline in enrollment from domestic student point of view. Are you seeing some pattern for international students? We are seeing of late quite a few news around this topic.
Yes, I mean, international recruitment coming to the US has, if you look at the data of the past, I would say 30 odd years or even more for that matter, there has been a steady increase, constant increase. If there's a decline in one country, there's an increase in another country, so it balances itself out. But overall, it has been, I would say, except for a blimp here and there, it has always been on the up. Now, what has happened lately, because of the political scenarios and changes that have taken place, there has been the challenge, of course, is getting a visa to come to the U.S. The measures are much more strict. The requirements have become far more difficult for many of the students. There's tremendous concern on that side. Will we get a visa? So it is no longer that easy. There you find more students being declined a visa than being approved for a visa. Added to that is, of course, the tension, in terms of various political tensions. That is, are students feeling comfortable in the host country? Do they feel comfortable with what all is going on in the U.S.? Will there be jobs for them when they graduate? Will they have an opportunity to stay back and work and maybe get a job before they return back to their respective countries? So all these issues we are now seeing, come to the forefront. I think the latest data is not out, but I suspect, as it has been the last year, that there will be a drop in numbers. That is what all of us are thinking. Universities are preparing themselves for that scenario. It is not a happy scenario because many of them have pre-planned as to what they thought would be their enrollment and target numbers. So this is a big hit for them. But there's not much that can be done because it's not in their control. Issuing visas or trade tension or political tensions of any kind, that is not in the domain of universities and people who go out and recruit. It is up to others.
Okay.
Hopefully, politicians and the folks see the tremendous benefit of international students in the American higher education space. If you look back at, again, the same 30, 40 years, the tremendous contribution of international students who've stayed on, who have joined academia. If you look around the US right now, many engineering schools, many computer science areas, many business schools, their deans are all, and faculty, a majority of them are from countries from abroad. So that has been a huge contribution. Also from the research side, all the R&D, a tremendous amount. You have to look at Silicon Valley. Many of these folks are all graduates from different parts of the world who have come to the US and then moved on to companies in the US. A good example is, of course, Microsoft CEO, Nadella himself. But there are so many instances of these people who've contributed tremendously that, and many politicians recognize it. It's just that there's a different game in town right now, and hopefully that will correct itself in the near future.
Sure. Since you interact with so many students, I suppose international students, do you have some stories that you want to share with our viewers where you are actually seeing international students getting concerned about, say, visa or career after graduation? Do you have some anecdotal stories to share with us?
Yes, so the past couple of years, yes, I do travel around a lot. I do meet with a lot of students and a lot of parents. It's not just the students. Sometimes students are not, they are informed because of their own networks, but also parents are involved and they are informed through their own networks. So there is genuine concern on all sides. So yes, there have been several instances. I was at an event in Hyderabad in India, and after the event was over, a family did come with their daughter and we got talking, and they were very enthusiastic about what she wanted to do. And after the conversation was over, after about 5-8 minutes, the mother immediately asked. She said, well, "We do have a concern. What kind of guarantee is there for our daughter to get a visa?" And I said, there is no guarantee. I mean, none of us in higher education, and nobody actually can give any guarantee. It depends purely up to the consular officials. It depends on the paperwork that is presented, how convinced they are of the intentions of the student, and if they meet all the requirements. So their big concern was, one, getting the visa. What do they have to do to get a visa? And I don't have an answer for that. I mean, you do what is being asked of you, but it depends on the visa officer. I mean, it is purely, something like we joke around. It's like, depends, if the cup of coffee in the morning was hot enough for the visa officer to feel good about it. That would be the basis. So, I mean, it's of course a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, as I say, but the fact of the matter is, it is rather arbitrary. There is no fixed, you've done all this, that is why you're entitled to a visa. No, it doesn't follow that pattern. So that is on that angle. And then there was an instance in terms of from the job perspective, where a student, and this was in Europe actually, surprisingly, who wanted to go over to the US, and it's like, okay, I plan to do my education. The student was from Sweden, and but I'd like to stay back and work. What do you think are my work opportunities? And I said, well, again, it's difficult to project from, now what the work opportunities will be 2 years from now when you finish your master's degree, because I don't know what the market will be like. What are the demands? What is it that people are looking for? What are your credentials? Do they match up? But at the same time, you have to believe in yourself that yes, there is a market. Hopefully, you're studying something or pursuing a master's degree in something that has a market, and then you have to make an extra effort to kind of do your research and be on top of it. And the one thing I always tell all students, once you land, start building your network. People are under the assumption it's like, oh, I will only focus on my studies. That's not the answer. The answer is build your network. Your network is going to help you. All the people you meet, the connections, your faculty, your professors, people on the outside, presentations which take place on campus, those people, just go out and talk to them. They love to talk. Just get to know them, introduce yourself, and just keep doing that, and you will build your profile, and people will remember. So those are just some anecdotal, that could go on. There are several such scenarios in different parts of the world. But yes, I understand the concerns of on both sides in terms of the visa aspect as well as the employment aspect.
Sure. It's always good to put stories along with numbers so you get a better perspective. So moving on, we are seeing that international students are a little bit concerned about US. At the same time, there are other countries where more and more international students are going. So is visa the only reason, or there are countries apart from US which are actively trying to get more international students? Is this space becoming more competitive?
Yes, that's a very, very good question, actually. It is becoming competitive because other countries have also realized the benefit of having an international student. It's not just about the cultural aspect, we're getting students from different countries. No, it is what happens afterwards. Their ability to contribute into the economy. That is the driving force for many of these countries, for example, European countries. Why have they gone so far out to recruit students and made it, I would say, significantly easy to have students come over, and study in programs. Many countries and universities have started offering many of their master's degree programs in English, knowing fully well that if they offer it in their own language, say Italian or German or Swedish or whatever it is, the pool will be very small. They would have the same kind of problems in terms of demographics that we are having in terms of domestic students. So then the question is, to expand that pool, but not just from the angle of bringing in students, but to help in the labor market later on. Who are these people who are going to be employed? Many of these countries are suffering from, an aging population. They need a workforce which is young. The growth in their own demographic is very small. In many cases, it's a negative. So who's going to be working and doing all these jobs? Who's going to be doing all the creative aspects of it? Who's going to be thinking, doing the ideation? They need these for young folks. So that has become an angle. And countries are making every effort to ease the transition. In many of these countries, of course, cost of education is far less. So for students who are coming from different parts of the world where money is a concern, they're going to look at it from that angle. It's like, wow, I'm getting this education, and then the possibility of getting a job in that country is high, and I have to pay only so much. Why not there? Because what I like about many of these students is their flexibility. That they're willing, unlike say in the past, they're willing to consider other options. And I think that is good. It is good for the countries, it is good for the student, it's good for everybody involved. Let there be more competition, let there be an open market kind of thing. Let the student be in a position to be able to choose what is it that they are looking for and what he or she feels is the best option. I hope that it is a more informed decision. In other words, that they are talking to counselors, not just parents and uncles and aunts and friends and anecdotal kind of things, but people who understand, people who are professionals. It could be university people, it could be counselors, academic counselors at many of these agencies who help students, so that they understand what the implications are and what the steps are.
Super. So this is good to have your perspective from student side, or let's say political side. These are the reasons why probably students are coming less to US international students. But some people feel that US universities also went too far as international education education was they feel that the meaning of international education meant getting more international students who pay more tuition fee. They practically started treating international students as cash cow. So, what is your take on that?
Um, um, I wouldn't use the word cash cow, but I know it is, common lingo. You can use it that way. Um, for U.S. universities, yes, it has been a reality aspect that with funding, drop in funding in terms of what is happening at universities, numbers in terms of domestic demographic, numbers coming into universities, and them being forced to look on the outside, and they have realized that there is need on the outside. So it is, it's kind of a supply-demand situation where, in this case, the supply is, tremendous amount, and the demand is also tremendous. And how do you make it? And it's competitive for the universities. It's not that only one university is doing there. The U.S. has about, a few thousand universities. They're all competing. The quality of academic programs, depending on what you're looking for, is there. Yes, there has been debate and discussion at universities that we must not treat international students just from a financial angle. Yes, they do bring in revenue because they are paying full cost. But let me try and address that aspect of full cost so that for many people who are not aware, what it means. Now, you must remember that international students and their families have never paid taxes in the US. So when there is a university in California, for example, the whole idea of in-state tuition is that these students who are from that state, their parents have paid into the system. In other words, the student should be entitled to benefit from the system because they have paid taxes, and that is why the in-state tuition. Now, if a student is coming from the neighboring state, not in India, but we're talking about Nevada or Arizona, which are right next to California, they are also treated as out-of-state, non-resident students. The difference is the time frame. So they will probably spend only a year paying, non-resident tuition fee, and then they will become residents of California. For the international student who has never contributed towards the tax system or structure in the US, so they have to shoulder the full cost of education, of what it truly costs for a university to provide education to a student. So while there is the feeling that, we are paying too much money, it is not that they are paying too much money. In the case of other students, it has been subsidized in different ways over a period of time. In the case of international students, they are coming there maybe just for 2 years, and they've never paid into the system. So that is why the hit is much higher. Of course, that is a logical and the right presentation of what this whole idea of tuition and non-resident and in-state and all that is. But yes, I do understand that it is indeed a high cost. You are right. It is of concern even within the United States, where cost of education has gone up significantly. Not in relation to inflation or anything else like that. It's just the cost of delivering education has gone up significantly, and that is where the debate has started. Politicians have questioned it, businesses have questioned it, parents have questioned it. These are all from within the US, so it's not something that is from just the outside.
Sure. There is another aspect of international education, and that is American universities going abroad and opening their branch offices. Now, some people say that here also many universities ignored poor academic quality, they ignored free expression, poor track record for civil and human rights, while forming such partnership in countries such as Saudi Arabia, China, and Abu Dhabi. So, what is your take on that?
Uh, these universities try to stay out of the political arena because that is not something they want to be involved in. So, from an administrative standpoint, they try to stay away from it. You will definitely have faculty, and because faculty are independent and they are very vocal, so they will many times voice that we should rethink about our relationship with XYZ university in ABC country. And that has sometimes gained traction, and in the past few years we've noticed that there have been discussions. Universities have been a little more straightforward in saying that okay, we are not going to do this, and that is the reason that they have given. But I would say, if you look at it in terms of the number of, say, branch campuses or universities that have been set up, that number is significantly less. It has been designed more from the idea of bringing that education or university to the local population because there is a perception of need by that country or that region or area and some affiliation with the university, usually based on some alums who have gone back and who become benefactors in this case. So there is there is that angle which allows universities to go in. But I would say those numbers are significantly less from the U.S. In comparison, they might be, I would say, a little bit more when you look at, say, Australia or some of the European countries, even using a kind of a ratio basis of the number of universities. U.S. has always been a little, I wouldn't say slow, but slow and late to the idea of setting up a campus.
Okay.
They have been, I would say, they have spent more time. They've also suffered at the same time. They've been burnt in some situation where they thought that it would work in their favor, but actually it cost them the other way around, and they have backed out. So there have been those instances. But yes, politics has taken center stage. A lot of it has to do with students. It is students who have, started becoming more vocal as to, why, like human rights and things along those lines. So it is nice to see students getting a little more vocal and asking their universities or institutions to be more open about, their policies. And if you look back, actually, I remember my time at UCLA when I was studying over there doing my PhD. The apartheid movement was, big, and I remember your students had pitched camps on campus outside the administration building, blocking the entrance to the building till the university made a decision of divesting its funds from anything to do with South Africa, so that it would, kind of drive home the message that apartheid is not acceptable and that universities are making a commitment. So the students have brought about change.
Very well. So we have spent good amount of time talking about international education, which is a small subset of higher education.
Right.
And since we are on this topic, what is your take on higher education? How relevant it is? Are universities being reduced to just a degree granting accreditation body, or you see some future here?
I think that discussion is still going on. Universities have started responding to change. They have realized that what the industry is demanding, what the market is saying, what the needs of tomorrow's generation, that they have to start changing, tweaking, whatever you may want to do with academic programs to make it more relevant so that a student who enters the degree program and graduates, they can do something with that degree. So there is a tremendous effort on the part of faculty and university officials to start addressing that and make sweeping changes. Now, in terms of what will happen in the future with universities, you've had several people who've commented, universities are a thing of the past, it's going to collapse and disappear. I don't think so. I think there will be a certain kind of student who will go to the brick and mortar setup because that's what they have, fantasized about. Parents feel comfortable, or the kind of learning that happens over there is advantageous to the student. And then there'll be others who will go the other route, which is the online approach or a packaged kind of thing that might be available in the future. And the reason I say that is, let's not forget, universities are not just about learning. It's not just about going to classes. There's a whole network. There's a whole community. There are sports. If you look at, for example, the U.S., majority of the U.S. Olympic team, which goes for the Olympics every summer and winter Olympics, majority of them are university students. So the kind of training they're getting, and not just that, if you look at many other countries, their students are studying in US universities because the kind of facilities that are provided are not available in those countries. And this is, I'm talking about European students. Many of their athletes who are studying in the US, they'll compete for Spain or Germany or England or whoever it is. But the fact of the matter is that kind of support, that kind of infrastructure, that kind of attention to the kind of interest that students have, that is not present in other parts of the world. And so the US, the model that has been developed, is obviously very, very beneficial to many of these students. So, you have academics on one side, you have athletics on the other side. It's about coming together, it's about friendships and networking and engagement and doing all those things, living in communities, understanding issues. It takes as they say, it takes a village. In this case, it takes a university to bring about a certain amount of change and build a student, the foundation, the characteristics of a student, the personality of a student. All these become part of who they are going to be in the future.
Very well. So coming back to our topic at hand, international education, if it has to move forward in this new world which is no more flat, what would you recommend universities? Couple of areas where they should focus on, where they should prioritize their efforts on.
Wow. I think one thing that comes to mind is universities are slow in terms of change, so they tend to respond a little slowly. So change does come about, but it comes about at a much slower pace. And I think you have quite a few universities who have now become a little more aggressive. So they've looked around, surveyed the market. It's like, oh, this is what is happening in say in technology. We need to respond to that and build an academic program and courses that will respond to it. So I think that alert has gone up. So I would say that is one of the areas that I would strongly recommend to universities. I'm just an individual, but I think people have realized that that is something which needs to be done. Because that is how the university will be attractive. Otherwise, people are going to say, oh, they're teaching all this old stuff, which is not relevant anymore. Especially for some of these professional schools like computer science and engineering and business areas. They have to be on top of what's going on. They can't be teaching what was. They have to teach what is going to be. A good example is AI. A few years ago, nobody ever thought that AI would become so big. But at the same time, universities responded very quickly and incorporating courses in AI, and now entire areas devoted and dedicated to AI. So those are the kinds of changes that universities have begun to respond to. But then there are other areas, unfortunately, like the humanities and social sciences, which have suffered because a tremendous amount of visibility has gone to the professional areas. So I think they are now rethinking about these areas also, humanities, social sciences, what needs to be done, because any community is not just made up of one kind of people. You need artists, you need social workers, you need people from different walks of life who make up the whole community. So there is an understanding that we have to address those aspects also. So there is an effort on the part of all universities to try and find a balance in terms of how to deliver all aspects of it.
Very well. Thank you, Dr. Dilip Devasthale. Thank you for your time today. You are listening to Dr. Dilip Devasthale on international education. He has been a professor and dean for more than 20 years in many US universities, including University of Alabama and Marist College in New York. I am Manish Katyan. I am founder of Higher Education Vision. Thank you very much for your time today.